Welcome back to the Base Talk podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Billingsley, owner and founder of Base Sports Performance in Hernando, Mississippi. In this episode, we are going to be discussing what college athletes should focus on during the winter break. All right. So welcome back to the podcast. Like we mentioned, today's episode, we are going to be discussing what college athletes should focus on during the winter break. So kind of taking it back a few years to when I was playing in college, I think a lot of times throughout the fall, we're playing fall games, we're playing fall scrimmages, and, we kind of get, just over the hump of, Halloween, and it's starting to get towards the holiday season. And, I can't speak for other athletes, but I would always start to make, college winter plans around the 1st of November or so. And really mainly just mental plans at the time because, again, there wasn't many options as far as, going to actual, organizations or businesses or places that could actually help a ton. It was kind of all on your own, especially, back then. So a lot of it was just mental plans, kind of like what I wanted to focus on, what I wanted to get better at, how I was going to separate myself and come back different, from when I left. And I think a lot of times, I didn't set clear or realistic expectations of what that break was going to, what it was going to help with. I think, in my head at the time, I'm 18 to 22-year-old, think that, I can make a ton of progress, in 3 to 4 weeks. And I'm sitting here thinking I'm going to put on, 15, 20 pounds of muscle, and I'm going to gain, 3 to 5 miles an hour. And I'm just going to put my head down and work my butt off for those 3 to 4 weeks. And I genuinely thought that those things were possible to do. Now, don't get me wrong. It is absolutely possible to gain that amount of weight, just not that amount of lean tissue, naturally, at least. And then as far as the velocity enhancement, again, sometimes, there's some things in your delivery or things in timing or sequencing that absolutely can help, with 1 to 2, maybe 3 miles an hour in just a few weeks. But that's very, very few and far between, right? That's kind of a unicorn. That's a best case scenario when you find a different timing mechanism. And it's not going to be based off of a physical, gain or a physical building, of muscle or movement or anything like that in just 3 to 4 weeks. So really what I want to hit here is making sure that we are setting realistic expectations. Obviously, mine were not realistic. I had 3 to 4 weeks, 20 to 28 days at the most. And in my head, I was going to gain all that amount of muscle. I was going to completely change my career in 3 to 4 weeks. Well, the reality is it doesn't work like that. It takes a lot longer to, build that amount of muscle. It takes a lot longer to build new movement patterns that are going to help in that dramatic of a way. And then 99% of the time, it's going to take a lot longer to learn new, mechanical movements or just make things more efficient on the mound in order to gain that velocity. And even if you do gain that amount of velocity, you don't want it to happen over 3 to 4 weeks because that's where stress levels come and that's where your risk of injury gets a lot higher and things like that. So again, going back to kind of my point here is we need to set realistic expectations on what it is that we are doing and what we are looking to do. And that's one thing that a lot of guys will get exit meetings, from their collegiate, from their colleges. I say guys, but I just mean, athletes in general. We have guys and girls that get, their exit meetings following their fall. And, a lot of them will come back and it'll be a skill that they're looking to do. If they're pitchers in baseball, we're looking to add a changeup or, we're looking to maybe try to make our slider a little bit more efficient or, maybe if they're a softball or a position player, we're looking to obviously work on an outside pitch, driving it away or whatever, right? There's a specific skill that we are looking to get better at over the break. And, I think a lot of the college athletes will come in and they'll mention that, but then they'll also mention, I want to throw harder, I want to sprint harder, I want to swing harder. I really want to put on 15 pounds, kind of like I mentioned. Obviously, mine was on a little bit more of the drastic side. And, we sit down with them in their initial evaluation, or, if they've trained with us before, it's a reevaluation where we go back through what their evaluation looked like the first time. We re-sit down and we look at, how did the fall go? How does your body feel? Did you have any nagging injuries? Have we put on a lot of weight? Have we lost some weight? Are we maintaining? What did our numbers look like? Did our velocity go up? Did it go down? Did it stay the same? What are all those factors that are being, placed into each athlete's kind of development plan? And we'll sit down with them and go over those numbers. And I think that's a really, really important part of setting realistic expectations, is going over what does your exit interview look like at school, and looking at, hey, this is where you were mobility-wise when you left us for the summer. We're lacking a little bit here. That might be something that has to do with your velocity going back down, or that has to do with, your sprint time increasing and you're getting a little bit slower, right? There's something sometimes from a physical standpoint that is just very small that, that may have just happened over games and a ton of volume over the fall, especially now. They're playing a lot more fall games than they did when I was playing. I think one of our athletes mentioned they had close to, I want to say they said they had close to like 40 games in the fall. And that's a lot, right? That's an entire season. So, not only are we increasing the volume in the fall, but that also means we are decreasing the amount of time to, physically develop. And again, obviously they're still getting in the weight room. They're still doing a lot of things. But, that's not the main focus anymore. The main focus is playing and contributing immediately. And I think that is what we want to make sure we are doing, is setting a clear, realistic goal of what are we looking to do over these next 3 to 4 to 5 weeks at the most. And, set a plan. And a lot of times, again, guys are one way or the other. They're all gung-ho, hey, I'm about to absolutely crush it these next 3-4 weeks. We're going to get after it 5-6 days a week. I'm going to do some other stuff on Saturday and Sunday, on my own, whatever it is. Or it's the exact opposite, where, guys or girls will come home and, they just need a break. They're physically and mentally exhausted. They've been beat down all fall. They just got off of exams and they're fatigued, right? Their central nervous system is fatigued. They're not feeling great. There's some things bothering them, and they just kind of hang out, all winter break, which is, there's something to be said for obviously rest and recover. But I think that what they are, deeming as rest and recover is, sit on the couch, play some pickup basketball here and there. Maybe we're going out with our friends at night. Everybody kind of meets back up at home during Christmas break, especially when you're in college. And we might not be gaining, the best habits over Christmas break. So the second point I'm trying to paint here is Christmas break might not be able to drastically improve what you are doing. Absolutely can improve, and it can set you up for big improvements over the spring, but it can drastically hurt you. If we sit home for 3 to 5 weeks and we don't do anything, and, all of our muscles kind of get adapted to the act of not doing much, our power levels are dropping, our rotational power, our sprinting power, our jumping power, throwing power, everything is decreasing by not doing it. Again, don't get me wrong, rest is important. But I think where we come into play from a private organization, especially being, athletes that have all previously done this, is we can help talk to and set a plan for those athletes that are feeling fatigued, and they might not be motivated, and they might be banged up a little bit, and they're not feeling good, and they really want to go home and just sit. We can help them with, hey, maybe instead of a super aggressive development plan over the break, maybe we come in for 2 lifts a week and we give you 1 to 2 mobility days, right? Where we are regaining, mobility, we're regaining range of motion. Whatever that nagging injury is, we're kind of help taking care of that. That way it doesn't continue to nag you in season. Or sometimes what happens with that is, if they're coming home with a nagging injury, they'll sit on the couch and not do anything. And the pain goes away after 5 weeks, but we didn't address the issue to begin with. So as soon as they get back to school, they get back into the habit of practicing and pre-scrimmage games and things like that. And it comes right back up and it comes back worse because that we didn't address it to begin with. And that's the kind of things that we want to make sure, that we are make it super clear about with the ones that do feel fatigued and don't want to come in and train over the break is we need to, at least get, 2 to 3 days where we are moving the body and we are taking care of the things that are bothering you. And, over those 3 to 5 weeks, again, being able to heal those nagging injuries, being able to build back mobility and range of motion, or especially from our overhead athletes, being able to repair shoulder range of motion restore shoulder range of motion and build back, the posterior cuff strength and the mid-trap strength. And, maybe it's hip internal or external rotation because they've been rotating one way nonstop. Those are the type of things that, again, although are not going to be drastic changes, are absolutely going to play a role in making big changes, into the spring and setting you up for success into the spring. Really, if we're going to look at this from a bird's eye view, from a college athlete perspective, the winter break, is not going to make you per se, but it is absolutely going to help you set up for success in the spring. But it can absolutely hurt you. It can absolutely break you. And that's the time that you need to make sure that you are taking advantage of it and, you are taking care of your body and preparing your body for a big spring, especially if you're a spring sport athlete or baseball and softball. That is the time where you don't have to worry about school anymore. You don't have to worry about traveling much other than possibly the week of, Christmas and things like that. And that is when you can really make sure that we are setting the body up for success into the spring and summer seasons. So that's something that you should really, really focus on is if you feel great, understand that we need to set realistic expectations. If you don't feel great and you don't really want to train and you really just want to go hunt or you want to hang out and you don't want to do much because you don't feel great, also understand that just by coming in and getting 2 or 3 days a week, just making sure that we're taking care of our body and setting it up for success into the spring is going to help you dramatically as opposed to not doing much. So that's a couple big things. And then some other obvious things too is, when you're at school, in college, it's really easy for nutrition habits to get off, right? And I know that's the large part of the year. But during, the winter break, again, I know we have Christmas, and, guys and girls like to, eat well, just like everybody else, right? You eat well, you have an extra dessert or an extra drink or whatever it is. All that's fine, right? Let's enjoy it. Let's have fun. And enjoy the break. Let's enjoy, the season and things like that. But also it's a great time to build nutritional habits that we can take with us again back to school and into the spring. So, being able to come home, you don't have to rush to get to a 6 a.m. lift or a 6 a.m. practice or an 8 a.m. an 8 a.m. class, right? You can sleep a little later. You can, wake up and have a good quality breakfast. You can go ahead and plan a good quality lunch. You can plan a good quality dinner with some snacks. And you can plan out your day a little bit more because you're not worried about, team practice or classes or exams or things like that. So that's a really good time to rebuild good nutritional habits that you can take with you. Again, those 3 to 5 weeks, you can definitely change some body composition. You can add some muscle. You can decrease some fat, whatever it is that your goal is and what you're looking to do. But understand, again, those aren't going to be super dramatic. But that is where you can build those habits to take with you, when you go back to campus and when you go back to school. Same thing with our sleep and recovery. Again, sometimes if we're in college, we're going to bed late. We're waking up late, right? So, things change with your body, right? So if you're having to wait to, wake up and rush to get back somewhere, obviously that's going to kind of change your central nervous system. If you're kind of waking up in the middle of the night knowing that you have a 6 a.m. lift, you might be a little anxious when you wake up. And that just changes things, right? It changes the quality of the sleep. It changes the quality of the recovery. And again, the break is just a good time to build good nutritional habits, build good sleep and recovery habits that you can take with you into the spring. So last thing here I do want to hit kind of closer to, our pitchers or hitters. This is a good time when we can focus a little bit more on a specific skill. So as I previously mentioned, if you want to come home and we want to work on our breaking ball, shape, that's a great time where we can do that, right? We can spend some additional time, going over wrist positions and spins and shapes and give you some reps at that. And that's a great time to hit a skill like that, where we want to work on, an off-speed pitch, or if you're a hitter, maybe you want to work on taking it to the opposite gap, or you want to work on, hitting, the high and inside pitch, whatever it is. One specific skill like that can definitely be, gained in a positive way over, the winter break. And I think that is what goes back to just having a plan and making sure that we have a plan that is realistic and specific to something that's a low-hanging fruit that's going to help you immediately in the spring. We don't want just a big broad goal like, hey, I want to gain muscle, I want to lose fat, I'm going to get faster, I'm going to get stronger, I want to throw harder, right? That's all super broad. We need something specific. Let's say, hey, this is the direction I want to go with my body weight, with lean tissue versus fat, and I really want to get, better at this specific skill. And that's a recipe for, success over the winter break. Pick a skill, pick something that you can improve over a few weeks that is going to drastically improve, your ability to play at a high level in the spring, and that's going to set you up for success over the long term. Again, we need to make sure that we remember that development is a long-term game, right? We can't just work really hard in the 8 weeks in the summer and really hard in the 3 to 5 weeks in the winter and expect to play at the next level beyond college, right? You've really got to understand this is a full-time job if you are looking to play at the next level professionally, or if you're trying to go from junior college to Division I, SEC, whatever it is. But you have to understand that if you want to be an athlete that is going to maximize your potential, this is a long-term game, and it has to be sustainable. So you need to set a plan that you can sustain over a long period of time that can help you stack bricks day to day and get you to the next level. So that's the main thing. Again, when you're coming home, make sure we set a realistic goal. Make sure that we understand what our low-hanging fruit is, and then building back good habits from the nutritional and sleep recovery side. So those are the big things that are really going to help set you apart in the spring versus the guys and girls that don't, focus on that over the break. So thanks for listening today. Again, please feel free to share this, like it, rate it, review it. Again, the more people we can help, the better. So please share it along. Thanks for listening.